Sorry. The situation was urgent just now. Although I noticed something was strange, it was already too late to pull back, Han Li said apologetically, raising his hand and beckoning again. As soon as he finished speaking, a ball of silver flame shot out and landed beside him. With a rustling sound, a body dropped from within it. It was the black-faced elder. His body, which had been severed into two halves, had already been joined together again, but his aura was extremely weak. Some kind of restriction seemed to have been planted inside the black-faced elder's body. At this moment he lay on the ground unable to move, staring at Han Li and Shi Chuankong with hatred in his eyes. The ball of silver flame rolled and condensed, transforming into the essence flame firebird. In a flash it sank back into Han Li's body. Shi Chuankong seemed not to hear Han Li's words at all. He looked at the black-faced elder on the ground with a complicated expression, then turned his gaze and fixed it firmly on the yellow-robed man not far away. You have impressive eyesight. With only a few scattered clues you were able to infer so much. Admirable, truly admirable, the yellow-robed man said with a smile, sizing Han Li up and down while clapping his hands. As he spoke, the yellow glow on his face quickly dispersed, revealing his true appearance beneath. He wore half of a silver mask, covering the left side of his face. The right side that was exposed had smooth, pale skin, making him look like a young man of 25 or 26. On closer inspection, that half of his face was actually powdered. His cheeks were flushed red, and his lips were painted crimson. He looked neither male nor female, giving off an eerie and unsettling feeling. Hua Jing, it's you. Shi Chuankong seemed to recognize him and shouted sharply. Immediately afterward, his entire body began to tremble. Bloodshot lines appeared in his eyes, and an expression of extreme pain surfaced on his face. His aura became violently chaotic, faintly showing signs of erupting out of control. Han Li frowned slightly. His figure blurred, and he appeared beside Shi Chuankong. With a wave of his hand, a burst of green light entered Shi Chuankong's body. The chaotic aura around Shi Chuankong instantly calmed a little. Much of the bloodshot color in his eyes faded, and his expression also steadied slightly. Fellow Taoist Shi, I understand how you feel, but now is not the time for grief. This person is not weak, and his law powers are even stranger. You seem to know him. Do you know his background? Han Li quickly asked through voice transmission. The masked man's cultivation was profound. He had already reached the late Tai stage, and the demonic treasure in his hand was extremely powerful. He was far beyond people like Elder Qi. In their brief exchange earlier, Han Li had used 6 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords. Yet he had failed to gain even the slightest advantage. This man is called Hua Jing. He is one of my fifth sister Shi Jingyan's trusted subordinates. He cultivates a law similar to hypnosis. He can manipulate a person's 5 senses without them realizing it. Elder Qi and the others were probably ambushed by him, just as you guessed. Shi Chuankong replied through voice transmission after taking a deep breath and barely regaining his composure. Han Li frowned again. Previously, in the 10 Calamities Mountains in Xiongju City, it had been the eldest prince Shi Zhanfeng. Now that they had reached Renshan City, Shi Jingyan had appeared as well. It seemed Shi Chuankong's siblings in the demon realm were truly not simple figures. My fifth sister sent you, didn't she? What is her objective? Shi Chuankong stepped forward and stared at Hua Jing with a cold voice, a faint blood-red light flickering in his eyes. Your Highness, 13th Prince, why ask when you already know? Although 5th Highness ordered me to bring back both the Luoja Pipa and your head, I did not expect such a powerful expert to be by your side. I no longer have full confidence in winning. Why don't we make a deal? Hand over the Luoja Pipa, and I will turn around and leave at once. What do you think? Hua Jing pinched his fingers in an orchid-like gesture, glanced at Han Li and laughed softly. Han Li said nothing when he heard this. Ridiculous. You trespassed into my Renshan city and killed so many of my subordinates. Today, don't even dream of leaving this place alive. Shi Chuankong said word by word, killing intent surging from him. Tisk tsk. It was only one old servant and a few dogs who died. Why must your highness be so furious? Losing control like this damages the dignity of your noble bloodline. Hua Jing said with a strange laugh, covering his mouth with one hand. Shi Chuankong said no more. His figure shot forward like lightning. A flash of silver light shone from his chest, and the Luaja Pipa appeared. As his 10 fingers rapidly plucked the strings, countless silver rune-like notes shot out. After condensing, they transformed into hundreds of silver wind blades. Their speed suddenly doubled, releasing terrifying hissing sounds as they cut through the air and rained down toward Huajing like a storm. These silver wind blades were not only extremely fast, but they also flickered in and out of sight like ghosts, making them dazzling and seemingly impossible to avoid. When Huajing saw the Luaja Pipa, his eyes lit up slightly. A greedy look flashed through them, but his figure retreated backward like the wind. At that very moment, lightning flashed behind him. 3 golden flying swords appeared silently, trembled slightly, and instantly transformed into dense golden sword shadows. They pressed down from every direction, blocking his retreat. Huajing's expression did not change at all. He raised his hand and waved. A yellow glow flashed above his head, and an exquisite small earth-yellow bell appeared. After a huge bell-like sound rang out, dazzling earth-yellow light spread from the little bell. As it spun, the light transformed into the phantom of a giant earth-yellow bell, covering his body. The next moment, countless golden sword shadows and dense silver wind blades arrived, striking the giant bell phantom. In an instant, spiritual light rippled across the surface of the giant bell phantom, but it remained as steady as a mountain, easily blocking both attacks. Shi Chuankong's face darkened when he saw this. The hand seal he was forming changed. The hundreds of silver wind blades immediately shot upward and began circling the earth-yellow giant bell like hundreds of silver swallows. As Shi Chuankong's fingers rapidly plucked the pipa, sharp ringing notes sounded. The hundreds of silver wind blades instantly gathered toward one point and turned into 2 silver crescent moons several meters wide. The 2 silver crescents gleamed brightly, releasing rumbling thunderous sounds. They seemed slow, yet were actually extremely fast as they slashed toward the earth-yellow giant bell. Seeing the 2 silver moons carry such momentum, Huajing also frowned slightly. He immediately waved both hands. The earth-yellow giant bell phantom around him suddenly brightened and became twice as thick. At the same time, countless earth-yellow runes densely appeared on its surface, releasing a heavy earth law power like a mountain. The next moment, the 2 silver crescents struck the giant bell phantom. Spatial fluctuations rippled out, and the 2 silver crescents silently sank into it. The nearly solid earth-yellow giant bell, along with its incomparably heavy law power, became as if it were nothing. What? Huajing's heart tightened when he saw this. He stomped hard on the void, and his body turned into a yellow blur as he shot backward. But at that instant, a figure flickered behind Huajing. Hanli appeared out of thin air and punched into the void, striking the earth-yellow giant bell. A deafening clang rang out. The earth-yellow giant bell buzzed violently. Although it did not shatter, the yellow light it emitted trembled wildly, forming yellow ripples that slammed into Huajing's body. Huajing's retreating figure slowed at once, and the 2 silver crescents immediately caught up. The 2 silver crescents crossed and slashed across his body. 2 sharp bursts of spatial law power erupted. With a dull tearing sound, Huajing's body exploded apart. Flesh and blood flew everywhere, turning into a pile of mangled remains. Elder Qi, I have avenged you. May you rest well on your journey. Shi Chuankong's expression loosened and he murmured softly, "Something's wrong." Han Li's expression suddenly turned extremely grave, and he shouted in a low voice. Shi Chuankong looked over, and his expression also changed. The burst of flesh and blood suddenly flashed, became transparent, then quickly faded and vanished. It was only an illusion. Purple light blazed in Han Li's eyes as he abruptly looked around. At the same time, his immense spiritual sense spread outward. Your Highness 13th Prince, did you really think you could kill me so easily? How heartbreaking. But if I, Huajing, only had that much ability, the grass on my grave would already be taller than a man. A sinister voice drifted over from several hundred meters away. Huajing's figure flashed into view there, his face full of mockery. A yellow glow flashed above his head, and a misty yellow bronze mirror slowly rose. The bronze mirror was about a foot wide. Its entire body emitted crystalline light. Around its edge was carved a ring of tadpole-like patterns, while at its center was a bright red flower, blooming with extraordinary brilliance. Han Li looked at the yellow bronze mirror, and his gaze was immediately drawn to the vivid red flower. The bronze mirror slowly rotated, and the red flower on it turned along with it, as though it had come alive. Not good. He suddenly snapped awake. The immense spiritual sense in his mind trembled violently, then surged into motion. At some unknown point, red shadows had appeared in his mind. They wrapped around his soul and were seeping inward. However, once Han Li's powerful spiritual sense moved like raging waves, it instantly swept those red shadows into its current. Several sounds like tearing silk rang out. The red shadows were immediately shredded and swallowed, disappearing without a trace. Han Li's mind instantly became clear. He let out a soft breath, then looked toward Hua Jing with a gaze as sharp as a blade. "Oh? I did not expect your spiritual sense to be so powerful as well. You actually forced your way free from my Hua Jing technique. Admirable." However, surprise flashed in Hua Jing's eyes before he grinned strangely. Han Li's heart tightened, and he focused his attention in full vigilance. At that moment, two sharp whistling sounds rang out. Two white shadows shot toward him from the left and right, striking at his body like lightning. Han Li's expression changed. Golden light flashed across his body, and he instantly turned into an afterimage, dodging to the side and narrowly avoiding the two white shadows. His figure flashed and appeared several hundred meters away. His expression was ugly as he looked at Shi Chuankong, who was now standing where Han Li had been a moment earlier. "Fellow Taoist Shi," Han Li said in a heavy voice. "Villain, surrender your life." At this moment, Shi Chuankong's eyes were wide with rage. He charged at Han Li again, plucking the Luoja peeper rapidly. Countless silver notes surged out, then condensed into silver wind blades that filled the sky and shot toward Han Li. The two white lights circled in midair and struck at Han Li again. They were two white jade rulers. Shi Chuankong opened his mouth and spat out two mouthfuls of blood essence, which flashed into the two jade rulers. Countless white runes poured out of the jade rulers. As they spun, the two rulers instantly transformed into two hazy white light masses the size of palaces, releasing dull thunderous rumbles as they pressed down toward Han Li. Han Li frowned. Golden lightning flashed over his body, and he disappeared in an instant. The next moment he reappeared not far behind Shi Chuankong. "Fellow Taoist Shi, wake up now," he shouted in a deep voice. His voice was loud as thunder, like the roar of lions and tigers, with a faint Buddhist resonance within it. This was a Buddhist lion's roar technique he had learned long ago. It possessed the power to shake the soul and break illusions. But Shi Chuankong did not react to Han Li's lion's roar at all. He turned around like lightning and abruptly swept his 5 fingers forward. 5 streams of purple-black demonic energy shot out from his fingertips, transforming into a purple-black demon claw. Purple-black flames coiled around it as it grabbed fiercely toward Han Li's chest. Seeing this, Han Li formed a hand seal and pointed. Several thick golden arcs of lightning suddenly rose from his flying swords and struck Shi Chuankong's forehead, lower abdomen and other places. Shi Chuankong's body shook violently. Golden lightning spread across him, instantly charring his entire body black. But he seemed not to feel anything at all. After being blasted back a short distance, he immediately steadied himself and charged forward again. Almost at the same time, several streaks of black light descended from the sky like black bolts of lightning, striking rapidly toward Han Li's body. At the same time, a sweet scent drifted over from the other side. A pink mist dragon appeared silently, opened its bloody mouth and swallowed down toward Han Li. How can this be? Han Li was startled. Golden lightning flashed across his body, and he shot backward again. Behind the black light and the mist dragon, the figures of the black-faced elder and the young woman in the pink dress appeared. Their faces were ashen, and their auras were chaotic. In this condition, they were clearly unable to fight, yet they did not notice at all and still charged over like lightning. Anyone struck by my Hua Jing divine ability will never notice their injuries, or wake up unless I release the technique myself. No matter how badly wounded they are, they will keep fighting until they die. Hua Jing's wild laughter rang out. Han Li's expression sank when he heard this. His eyes narrowed, and he dragged one hand across the space in front of him. Thunder roared. 18 azure bamboo cloud swarm swords appeared side by side. Go! He formed a hand seal and pointed. The 18 flying swords shook violently. Then all shot out, facing Shi Chuankong and the other two. Thick golden bolts of lightning burst forth, connecting and weaving together into a lightning tide stretching for more than 10 li. Within it rolled an extremely powerful lightning law force. Han Li's figure flashed and flew into it. The lightning tide brightened again and surged forward, instantly reaching Shi Chuankong and the other two. Without a word, the three of them attacked with all their strength. Shi Chuankong's 10 fingers turned into countless afterimages. The Luozha Pipa released a violent sound, and countless silver notes surged out. The silver notes split into 2 streams, merging respectively into the silver wind blades and the 2 white light masses. The silver wind blades gathered together and formed a silver crescent moon, twice as large as the one that had killed Hua Jing's illusion earlier. The 2 white light masses also fused together. As they spun, they transformed into a white blazing sun. The sun and moon intertwined and circled one another, bursting with silver light that shot into the sky. The surrounding void twisted, forming ripples of space that crashed toward the lightning tide. The black-faced elder opened his mouth and spat out a black inkstone. Under the urging of his hand seal, the black inkstone immediately spun at high speed. Large amounts of black mist gushed out from it. After condensing, the mist quickly formed a black fog tide. Cold energy surged within the fog tide. As black light flickered, chunks of black ice crystals of various sizes appeared. The black fog tide suddenly thickened, transforming into surging black water. The originally light and drifting black mist instantly became an icy raging river, roaring forward. The young woman in the pink dress flipped one hand and suddenly summoned a white scroll. With a rustle it unfurled. Countless white runes immediately poured out of the scroll. After condensing, they transformed into 8 lifelike white crystal dragons. The young woman in pink gave a delicate shout. Pink light around her body suddenly intensified and surged into the white scroll. The white scroll hummed and trembled, instantly turning pink. The 8 white dragon phantoms also turned pink and rapidly grew larger. In the blink of an eye, they became 8 pink crystal dragons over 100 meters long. These crystal dragons looked as though they had been forged from profound ice. They were completely different from the earlier mist dragon, and gave off a vast aura close to the Tai stage. The young woman's face was now so pale it was almost transparent, yet she still formed a hand seal without hesitation and pointed. The 8 pink crystal dragons shot forward. A tremendous roar erupted. The 4 attacks collided, producing a series of earth-shaking explosions. Golden, silver, black and red light violently intertwined, like 4 giant beasts fighting with all their strength. For a time they were locked in stalemate, seemingly unable to determine a victor. But anyone with clear eyes could see that the golden lightning had the advantage. It was only because Han Li feared harming the 3 already gravely wounded people that he did not dare unleash its full power. Ha ha ha. In the distance, Hua Jing watched this scene and burst into wild laughter again. With a strange, intoxicated expression, he licked his finger. What he loved most was seeing scenes like this. Companions who had trusted one another now fighting each other without restraint, while the one who remained clear-headed did not dare use his full strength out of concern for their bond and was forced into a desperate struggle. This scene was simply too amusing. Within the lightning tide, Han Li drove the countless golden bolts of lightning around him to resist the 3 people's attacks. Hearing Hua Jing's wild laughter, he suddenly snorted coldly and formed hand seals rapidly with both hands. Golden light flashed. 18 thick sword lights shot out of the lightning tide, wrapping around the protective light around Shi Chuankong and the other 2 before twisting fiercely. Shi Chuankong and the others were already using all their strength to resist the golden lightning tide. They had no energy to deal with anything else. 3 muffled explosions rang out. The protective light around all 3 shattered. Thick golden bolts of lightning immediately surged in and struck their bodies. The 3 were instantly blasted backward, blood spraying wildly from their mouths. The light around their bodies also disappeared completely. The lightning law inside the azure bamboo cloud swarm swords carried the traits of bone-cleansing golden lightning. It could paralyze a person's entire body, making them lose control over both their body and immortal spiritual power. But red light flashed inside the 3 people's minds. Their physical functions were forcibly awakened, and they began operating violently again without regard for damage. All kinds of light rose over their bodies once more. At that moment, Han Li's figure flashed and appeared in front of the three of them. With incredible speed, he tapped each of their foreheads 3 times. Each time he pointed, several crystalline chains shot from his fingertip and vanished into the foreheads of Shi Chuankong and the others. Their eyes immediately became empty. Then with 3 thuds, they all collapsed to the ground and stopped moving. After subduing the 3 in a flash, Han Li had consumed a great deal of immortal spiritual power. His face turned slightly pale. Only after taking a deep breath did he return to normal. Then he raised his hand, formed a seal and waved. The golden lightning filling the sky quickly vanished, turning back into 18 golden flying swords in the blink of an eye before flashing into his sleeve. When Hua Jing saw this, the smile on his face froze. He abruptly stood up and formed hand seals one after another, but Shi Chuankong and the others still did not react. You actually sealed their souls. What method did you use? Hua Jing's expression became extremely gloomy. His earlier smile had completely disappeared as he shouted in a low voice. Do you think I would tell you? Han Li said coldly. If you won't speak, then I will capture you and pull out your soul to inspect it myself. After fighting so many battles in succession, the vital energy inside your body is probably not even at 30% now. Hua Jing said slowly, cold light flashing in his eyes. Your Hua Jing divine ability is so domineering. Do you think its consumption is small? You have been standing aside and refusing to act, not simply because you wanted to put on a superior posture, right? Han Li said calmly. Hua Jing's eyes narrowed at once. Being toyed with by you until now has made me rather displeased. Now that you no longer have any helpers, we can finally fight one-on-one, Han Li said word by word. His face covered with a layer of killing intent as he slowly walked toward Hua Jing. Hearing Han Li's calm voice, Hua Jing suddenly felt a chill in his heart for reasons he could not explain. Arrogant nonsense. He immediately shouted coldly, concealing the trace of fear in his heart, and formed a hand seal with one hand. Yellow light around Hua Jing suddenly swelled, and behind him, a massive yellow beast head over 100 meters wide appeared out of thin air. It seemed neither tiger nor dragon, and no one could tell what kind of strange beast it was. As soon as the yellow beast head appeared, it opened its mouth wide and spat out a yellow ribbon of light. With a blur, it crossed several thousand meters and appeared in front of Han Li, coiling down like an enraged dragon. Han Li raised one hand and grabbed at the void. Golden lightning flashed in front of him. Thick bolts of golden lightning appeared again and transformed into a heavy curtain of lightning, blocking the yellow ribbon. The two collided with a crash. But the earth-shaking explosion he expected did not come. There was only a light-tearing sound. The thick lightning curtain flickered violently. In front of the yellow ribbon, it was as fragile as paper, shattering inch by inch and being pierced through in an instant. The yellow ribbon barely slowed at all. In a flash, it pierced through Han Li behind the lightning curtain. Han Li seemed to have been caught off guard, and a large hole was punched through his chest. But the next moment, his entire body scattered with the wind. It had only been an afterimage. Hua Jing's gaze darkened at the sight. His expression then changed abruptly. His body swayed strangely left and right, suddenly transforming into 4 or 5 yellow afterimages that fled in all directions. Before the yellow afterimages could escape far, countless golden sword chi erupted from the space where Hua Jing had just been standing, instantly covering an area of several dozen meters and swallowing those yellow afterimages within it. An angry roar came from the countless sword chi. Then a yellow crystal light broke through it and flashed several thousand meters away, revealing Hua Jing's figure. At this moment, most of his clothing was shredded. Blood dripped from his hands, feet, and other parts of his body, but a pitch-black inner armor had appeared on him, so his wounds were not serious. However, the half-mask on Hua Jing's face had vanished, seemingly shredded by the sword chi, revealing the other half of his face. That half of his face was gray and dark, covered in deep grooves like aged tree bark. No one knew why it looked that way. You dare knock off my mask? I will tear you into 10,000 pieces and scatter your bones to ash. Hua Jing touched his face. His eyes instantly turned blood red, and his expression twisted as he roared in fury. Yellow light blazed from his body. The surrounding void flashed repeatedly, and more than a dozen yellow beast head phantoms like the earlier one appeared. The beast head phantoms opened their mouths at the same time. More than a dozen yellow ribbons of light shot out, striking the dazzling field of golden sword chi. No one knew what kind of divine ability this yellow ribbon light was, but the power it contained was terrifying. Just like the lightning curtain earlier, the golden sword chi was easily pierced through, opening more than a dozen large holes before exploding apart. A figure flashed out from the collapsing golden sword chi. It was Hanli. As soon as he appeared, golden light erupted from his body. Vast golden radiance rapidly spread in all directions, forming a golden spirit domain several dozen li wide in the blink of an eye. At the same time, 18 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords shot out from his body. In a flash, they vanished into the void without a trace. A time spirit domain. Hua Jing sensed that the flow of time inside the nearby golden spirit domain had slowed. He no longer had time to roar. Yellow crystal light burst from his body as he instantly opened a crystal light spirit domain of his own. Within this spirit domain, crystalline light flickered, and countless flower petals danced through the air, giving off a dizzying sensation. He hurriedly formed a hand seal with both hands and pointed. The bronze mirror above his head suddenly brightened, sending down a yellow beam of light that enveloped his body. At the same time, yellow light flashed around Hua Jing, and an earth-yellow giant bell more than 10 meters tall appeared, covering both his body and the bronze mirror beneath it. Just as he raised these two layers of defense, the 18 azure bamboo cloudswarm swords appeared several meters away in the void and slashed down together, striking the earth-yellow giant bell. A deafening clang rang out. The earth-yellow giant bell trembled violently, and the yellow light it emitted flashed wildly, but it quickly returned to calm. Inside the giant bell, Hua Jing froze. Judging from the might those 18 flying swords had shown earlier, even if they could not break the giant bell's defense, their strike should not have caused so little movement. At that very moment, spatial fluctuations suddenly appeared above the giant bell. A fist the size of a house, covered in purple gold scales, emerged and lightly struck the earth-yellow giant bell. With a thunderous boom, the earth-yellow light on the giant bell surged violently. The bell shattered instantly like porcelain, scattering in all directions. At that moment, the void trembled violently again, and a purple gold demon god with 3 heads and 6 arms appeared. It was Han Li, transformed by the Nirvana sacred body. His eyes shone brightly. Strange power continuously seeped from the nearby spirit domain into his mind, trying to disturb his 5 senses. The immense spiritual sense inside Han Li's mind operated at full force, resisting the influence of the surrounding spirit domain. The remaining 5 purple gold fists blurred and struck the yellow beam of light around Hua Jing. An earth-shaking explosion rang out. A vast wave of power erupted. Space within several hundred meters distorted, and all the yellow beast heads around Hua Jing exploded and scattered. The yellow beam flashed violently, then shattered inch by inch. Although Hua Jing was not struck directly by the purple gold fists, the resulting shockwave swept over him and sent him flying like a bundle of straw. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Fear finally appeared in his eyes. Borrowing the momentum, he turned into a yellow rainbow and fled into the distance. However, Hua Jing was inside the time spirit domain. Even at full speed, his movements were still rather slow. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. He suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood essence, which entered the bronze mirror above his head. The misty yellow bronze mirror instantly took on a layer of blood-red color. Then a beam of blood-colored crystal light fell from the mirror and merged into Hua Jing's body. Hua Jing's body suddenly swelled. A deep red hue appeared over his skin, and blue veins bulged all over him. The long rainbow he had transformed into brightened several times over, and his speed doubled. At the same time, the nearby void flashed. Dozens of identical yellow rainbows appeared and shot away in all directions. All these rainbows gave off exactly the same aura, making it impossible to tell which was real and which was fake. Trying to run? Han Li snorted coldly. Golden light flashed around him, and the mantra treasure wheel appeared behind him, spinning rapidly. A buzzing sound filled the air. Countless golden ripples emerged from the mantra treasure wheel and instantly spread outward, covering all the rainbows. Every rainbow froze in place, completely motionless. Seeing this, Han Li let out a light breath. But at that moment, one rainbow fleeing toward the front left suddenly brightened. A vast aura erupted from within it, far surpassing Hua Jing's cultivation realm, and nearly reaching the great encompassment level. It was still continuing to rise. That rainbow flickered. The golden ripples nearby trembled with a buzzing sound, faintly showing signs of being broken open. Han Li's heart jolted. He hurriedly formed a hand seal and pointed. The 18 azure bamboo cloud swarm swords beside him all shot out. Golden sword chi bloomed, enveloping every rainbow before twisting violently. Immediately all the rainbows shattered. The Huajing bodies within them also exploded, but turned into clusters of light. A smaller portion of the sword chi wrapped around the rainbow in the front left direction and cut it madly. The Huajing body inside burst apart with a soft sound, turning into a pile of minced flesh. The rising aura instantly vanished, and the surrounding golden ripples returned to normal. Only then did Han Li let out a long breath. He formed a hand seal, dispersed the Nirvana sacred body transformation, and returned to human form. He flipped his hand and took out 2 pills, swallowing them. Then he waved, releasing a beam of green light that swept over Hua Jing's remains and the nearby yellow bronze mirror, pulling them over. The blood light on the yellow bronze mirror slowly faded, restoring it to its original color. Han Li picked up the yellow bronze mirror, his gaze flickering. This mirror was most likely Hua Jing's bonded demonic treasure. Using it as a medium, he activated hypnotic law power. Not only could he manipulate others as he pleased, but he could even hypnotize himself. Just now, he had not hesitated to consume his origin power to burst forth with strength infinitely close to the great encompassment level. Fortunately, Han Li's spirit refinement technique had improved greatly recently. Otherwise, he might not have been able to resist Hua Jing's divine ability. Han Li moved his arm, and a green light flew out from his sleeve, wrapping around the bronze mirror and storing it inside the profound heaven gourd. Then he flicked his finger. A wisp of green light entered the remains and soon flew out while wrapped around a yellow nascent soul. Killing intent flashed in Han Li's eyes. He reached out and grabbed the nascent soul, about to crush it with force. But his movement suddenly stopped, and he turned to glance at Shi Chuankong on the ground in the distance. After pondering briefly, he loosened his hand and opened his mouth, spitting out a ball of silver flame. The flame swiftly circled the yellow nascent soul and transformed into silver flame runes, engraving themselves onto its body. After doing this, Han Li waved and released a ball of flame into Hua Jing's remains. It burned fiercely. Hua Jing's remains soon turned to ash, leaving behind only a black inner armor, a yellow bracelet, and a yellow beast head relief sculpture. Han Li's brows moved slightly. He picked up the yellow beast head relief. It was only the size of a palm, carved so vividly that it seemed alive. His heart stirred. This was probably the object that had released those yellow ribbon attacks capable of piercing through almost everything. Although the whole object was yellow in color, it did not seem to have been refined from jade or stone. To the touch, it felt more like some kind of bone. After playing with it briefly, he put it away, intending to study it slowly in the future. Han Li then waved and stored the black inner armor and storage bracelet. Only then did he form a hand seal and withdraw his spirit domain and the mantra treasure wheel. As the golden ripples disappeared, Hua Jing's nascent soul immediately recovered. Fear appeared on its small face, and yellow light lit up on its surface. But at that moment, silver flame suddenly rose from the silver runes on its body. The flame burned away the yellow light on the nascent soul and left a black mark upon it. Ah! Hua Jing's nascent soul let out a miserable scream, its entire body trembling violently. I have placed a true flame restriction on you. This time was only a warning. If you dare make any more moves, I will immediately destroy your soul and spirit, Han Li said coldly. Hua Jing's nascent soul shuddered and immediately quieted down. Han Li nodded in satisfaction, waved his hand to put away the 18 azure bamboo cloud swarm swords, then blurred and landed beside Shi Chuankong and the others. Fellow Taoists, we can talk this over. Strictly speaking, there is no grudge between us. We merely served different masters and fought just now because of that. You are protecting Shi Chuankong, so I assume it is also because of the reward he promised you. Among the many princes and princesses under the Demon Lord, Shi Chuankong is nothing more than an insignificant figure. The Fifth Highness Shi Jingyan, whom I serve, commands enormous forces and controls endless resources. She is far stronger than Shi Chuankong by countless times, and she thirsts for talented people. Why not switch to her side? With your strength, as long as I introduce you, Fifth Princess will surely entrust you with an important position. Whatever reward Shi Chuankong promised you, Fifth Princess can definitely give you double. No triple. Hua Jing's nascent soul trembled, then quickly spoke like beans spilling from a bamboo tube, actually beginning to persuade Han Li. Release the Hua Jing technique on them, Han Li said calmly, as though he had not heard him. Fellow Taoist, you do not seem to be a member of my race. Instead, you resemble a cultivator from the true Immortal Realm who practices demonic arts. You probably do not understand the current situation in the sacred realm. Something major has happened in Yeyang City. Around this matter, the princes and princesses are now fighting among themselves, and many large and small forces throughout the sacred realm have been drawn in. Tai stage cultivators like us will immediately die, and have our Tao extinguished if we choose the wrong side. Fellow Taoist, you must think carefully before acting. Hua Jing's nascent soul spoke faster and faster. Release the Hua Jing technique on them. I will not say it a third time. If I kill you, the technique on them should also automatically unravel, shouldn't it? Han Li's gaze turned cold as he slowly spoke again. Hua Jing's nascent soul stared at Han Li with its mouth open, its eyes full of panic. For a moment it said nothing. Very good, Han Li said with a cold laugh. The silver flame runes on Hua Jing's nascent soul immediately brightened, and strands of silver flame emerged. Fine, fine. I will release the Hua Jing technique right away. Fellow Taoist, please show mercy. Black marks appeared across Hua Jing's nascent soul, causing unbearable pain. It cried out hurriedly and rapidly formed seals with its small hands. Red light flickered on the foreheads of Shi Chuankong and the other two. A strange red flower pattern appeared, then flashed and dispersed. Seeing this, Han Li nodded and stopped the silver flame restriction on Hua Jing's nascent soul. Then he formed a hand seal and pointed. Crystal light flickered at the foreheads of Shi Chuankong and the others. Several crystalline chains shot out and entered Han Li's body. The three people's eyelids moved slightly. Then they slowly opened their eyes, though their complexions were extremely poor. Han Li flicked his sleeve. 3 green talismans shot out and transformed into 3 clusters of green light, merging into their bodies. Shi Chuankong and the others immediately looked a little better and sat up. Fellow Taoist Li, what happened just now? Shi Chuankong's eyes were a little dazed. He patted his head, seeming unable to remember what had happened. The black-faced elder and the young woman in pink also looked confused. Right, where is Hua Jing? Did he escape? Shi Chuankong suddenly jolted in alarm, remembered what had happened earlier, glanced around and asked urgently. He is here. I thought you might have some things to ask him, so I kept his nascent soul behind, Han Li said, raising his hand and tossing Hua Jing's nascent soul toward Shi Chuankong. Shi Chuankong froze slightly, but still caught Hua Jing's nascent soul in one hand. His gaze swept over the surroundings, and he seemed to realize something. In the next moment, an intense hatred surged into his eyes. 13th Highness, this lowly one was only acting under another's orders. That was why I dared offend you. I am willing to abandon the 5th Highness and join the 13th Prince's command instead. I also know a great secret, one that concerns you. Hua Jing's nascent soul kept bowing with both hands, begging for mercy as he spoke rapidly. But Shi Chuankong had no intention of listening to him. Silver light flared from his hand, and his 5 fingers suddenly clenched. Hua Jing's nascent soul instantly flashed with wild yellow light. It was squeezed out of shape, and his voice stopped abruptly. Wait! You can't kill me. My master is Reverend Zhaogu. If you dare kill me, his venerable self will surely avenge me. Hua Jing's nascent soul struggled with all his might and screamed. Shi Chuankong turned a deaf ear to him. The silver light in his hand surged, and he clenched down mercilessly. Hua Jing's nascent soul only had time to let out a miserable cry before it shattered apart, turning into specks of yellow light. Han Li frowned slightly at the sight, as though he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Shi Chuankong had been deeply close to Qi Lao. Qi Lao had fallen to the law of hypnosis and died by self-detonation. The grief and fury in Shi Chuankong's heart was not something Han Li could truly imagine. This time it was once again thanks to fellow Taoist Li turning the tide, Shi Chuankong said after recovering some of his composure. He rose and cupped his hands in thanks. You are too polite, fellow Taoist Shi. However, I think it would be best not to ignore Hua Jing's final words. That Reverend Xiaogu should be a great encompassing existence, correct? Han Li waved his hand and said, that is right. Judging by the current situation, things are even worse than I expected. Renshan City is no longer safe either. We should leave this place as soon as possible. Shi Chuankong flipped his hand, took out several pills, swallowed them and nodded. Their battle earlier had been fierce and had caused no small commotion. Although no one had come to investigate yet, the news would likely reach certain people through hidden informants in less than half a day. What about them? Han Li nodded, then looked at the black-faced old man and the young woman in the pink dress lying nearby. In the previous situation, being able to save Shi Chuankong had already been difficult enough. He had not been able to look after anyone else. The injuries suffered by those two were far more severe than Shi Chuankong's. Although they had already awakened, they could not move at all. The secret technique Hua Jing had used had nearly drained all the vital energy from their bodies, and it had also greatly damaged their foundations. Whether they could recover was still uncertain. Those people were targeting me. As long as I leave Renshan City, they should not attack this place again. Let them remain here and recover from their injuries, Shi Chuankong said after considering it. That works. Han Li nodded. Fellow Taoist Li, please wait here for a moment, Shi Chuankong said. With a wave of his hand, he released a stream of purple light that lifted the black-faced old man and the young woman in the pink dress. He then searched the area, gathered Qi Lao's corpse and the others' remains and belongings, and flew off into the distance. Han Li sat cross-legged where he was and circulated his cultivation method to refine the medicinal power inside his body. A short while later, Shi Chuankong flew back. Han Li ended his cultivation and stood up. Let's go. Shi Chuankong formed a hand seal and summoned the black god flying shuttle. The two flew onto it. The shuttle then turned into a black shadow and vanished instantly into the distant sky. Outside Renshan City, Shi Chuankong had just guided the flying shuttle beyond the city's territory, and had not yet had time to raise its speed to the limit when he saw a streak of red light rushing toward them head-on. Immortal Realm. Another one. Han Li's eyes flashed, and his brows furrowed tightly. Shi Chuankong also knitted his brows, his expression tense as he immediately stopped the shuttle. 13th Prince, I have come under the 3rd Prince's orders to receive you. The red light stopped on its own 1,000 zhang away. Within it appeared a blood-colored flying carriage, and on it stood a man in red who transmitted his voice through divine sense. Do you have proof? Shi Chuankong exchanged a glance with Han Li, then replied through transmission. The man in red said nothing. He raised his hand and waved, sending a red light wrapped around an object flying toward them. Shi Chuankong hesitated slightly, but still raised one hand and drew the object to him from afar, slowly bringing it before himself. Han Li glanced over and saw that a palm-sized, half-moon-shaped jade token had appeared in Shi Chuankong's hand. There seemed to be some pattern carved on it, but the lines were rather chaotic, making it hard to see clearly at a glance. Shi Chuankong's eyes flickered faintly. He flipped his other hand, and an identical jade token of the same size and shape appeared in his palm, also covered in many lines. He held one jade token in each hand and fitted the two pieces together. The two halves, as white and dense as mutton fat jade, immediately lit up with a soft white glow, then merged into a round jade pendant. The lines on the pendant connected together, forming the side profile of a woman with 2 ears on her head. Although it was only a simple outline, it was extremely lifelike, vividly conveying the woman's faintly sorrowful yet deeply tender expression. Han Li could tell that the material of the jade pendant was quite extraordinary, but it was not some important immortal treasure. Even so, it seemed to be very important to Shi Chuankong. As he held the jade pendant and examined it, his gaze became unusually gentle, and a trace of reminiscence even appeared on his face. The token is correct. He should have been sent by third brother, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. On the other side, the man in red finally continued flying over. He looked quite young. The contours of his face were not especially sharp, and his features seemed rather soft. Only his eyes were long and narrow, like two long blades flashing with a keen edge. I am Chang Shui, a subordinate under the third prince. I was ordered to receive the 13th prince and escort you back to Yeong City, the man in red said as he came closer and cupped his fists. So you are the Blooddrop Marquis? I have heard third brother mention you before. He said you have always operated in the Yamba Mountains outside Wanyu City, where you have slain countless invading demonic beasts. You are one of his trusted right-hand men. It is an honor to meet you, Shi Chuankong said, looking somewhat surprised. 13th Prince, you must be remembering incorrectly. My area of activity has always been the Fallen Dust Mine Abyss in the northern reaches of the Southern Wasteland domain. I have never been to Wanyu City. Besides, with my meager cultivation, how could I be considered one of the third prince's right-hand men? Blooddrop Marquis was briefly startled, but quickly understood and replied with a smile. My apologies. If that test offended you, Blooddrop Marquis, please forgive me. Only after hearing this did Shi Chuankong believe him, and he cupped his fists in apology. No harm done. Your Highness is cautious and that is a good thing, Blooddrop Marquis said. As he spoke, his gaze kept falling on Han Li from time to time. It was clear he was quite interested in him. This is fellow Taoist Li Han. He has traveled with me all this way and saved me from danger many times. He can truly be considered my savior, Shi Chuankong explained. Han Li cupped his fists toward the man. The latter's expression grew solemn, and he also cupped his fists in return. What are your Highness's plans now? Blooddrop Marquis asked. Originally, I planned to take the teleportation array from within Runshan City to Chiyu City. Unfortunately, I was ambushed on my own territory, and the city's teleportation array was destroyed. Now we can only think of another way to reach Chiyu City, Shi Chuankong said with a bitter smile. You are heading to Chiyu City for the Space Escape teleportation array? Blooddrop Marquis asked. That is right. Chiyu City has the only Space Escape teleportation array in the Southern Wasteland domain. Although it cannot take us directly back to Yeong City, it can send us straight to Paleo City in the Linsheng domain. That is the fastest way back to the sacred capital. Once we reach there, even if we no longer use teleportation arrays, flying directly back to Yeong City will not be difficult, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. Although the Space Escape teleportation array can conduct ultra-long distance teleportation across domains, there are many restrictions on its use. Generally, one needs to hold at least the rank of Duke before applying to use it. If it is not being used for official business, one must also pay all expenses required to operate the array. Your Highness, Blooddrop Marquis said hesitantly. I indeed do not have a noble title, but perhaps you do not know, Blooddrop Marquis, that I also have another identity within Guangyuan House. That identity also grants me the right to call upon the Space Escape teleportation array once. As for the cost, I naturally have a way to handle it. The difficult part now is how to reach Chiyu City smoothly, Shi Chuankong said. Chiyu City is located at the northernmost end of the southern border domain. It is the city in the southern border domain closest to the Linsheng domain where the sacred capital is located. Since Renshan City's teleportation array has already been destroyed, if you want to teleport to Chiyu City, you can only search for another city. However, the other nearby cities are all far too distant. No matter what, it would take around 10 years, Blooddrop Marquis said after a moment of thought. 10 years. I fear unexpected complications may arise during that time, Han Li said with a frown. The sacred domain is vast. There is nothing we can do about that. If we are careful on the road, there should not be too much of a problem, Blooddrop Marquis said, slightly furrowing his brows. Do you know who caused trouble in Runshan City this time and prevented us from teleporting? Shi Chuankong suddenly changed the subject. Who was it? Blooddrop Marquis asked in confusion. Hua Jing, Shi Chuankong said. A subordinate of the 5th princess? Even she has made a move against you. Blooddrop Marquis asked in surprise. The key point is that we joined forces and killed Hua Jing. Before he died, he said that once his master, Reverend Zhaogu, received news of his death, he would immediately come after us, Shi Chuankong said with a bitter smile. Blooddrop Marquis's brows tightened even more when he heard this. That old ghost Zhaogu is a great encompassing cultivator, and he has long been in seclusion in Earthshade Valley of the southern border domain. He is extremely protective of his own, and he greatly favored Huajing as a disciple. If he comes after us, then even if I risk my life, I will not be able to keep you safe. When that time comes, I will have failed the third prince's entrustment, Blooddrop Marquis said with a long sigh. That is why fellow Taoist Li said 10 years is too long. Shi Chuankong sighed. After that, all three fell silent. 13th Prince, I do have one method that might resolve our current predicament. I just do not know whether you dare to try it. Blooddrop Marquis suddenly raised his brows and said after a long while. Tell us first, Shi Chuankong said, his spirit lifting. Blooddrop Marquis's gaze focused slightly. He slowly transmitted his words to Han Li and Shi Chuankong through ripples of divine sense. Han Li and Shi Chuankong both listened very carefully. However, the further they listened, the deeper their brows furrowed, and the more hesitant their expressions became. By the time they finished listening, Shi Chuankong remained silent and fell into deep thought. I think Blooddrop Marquis's method is feasible, though some details still need slight adjustments, Han Li said after glancing at the two of them and thinking briefly. After speaking, he also used a secret transmission technique to discuss the matter with them. In the end, Shi Chuankong finally nodded and said, From the look of things, aside from this method you two mentioned, there is no other viable path. Let us do it this way. A short while later, Han Li and Shi Chuankong flew down onto the blood-colored flying carriage beneath Blooddrop Marquis. The three of them turned into a streak of blood-red light and sped far away. Time flashed by and nearly 2 years passed. Above an ancient forest in the southern part of the southern border domain of the Demon Realm, a blood-red trail like burning flame raced across the sky at extreme speed. Within the blood-colored escaping light was a uniquely shaped blood shadow flying carriage. 3 people stood upon it, all fully urging the carriage forward at the same time. The red-robed man at the front had one hand pressed against an array plate on the carriage, sending a drop of his own blood essence into it. The 3 were none other than Han Li, Shi Chuankong, and Blooddrop Marquis. 13th Prince, once we fly out of this forest and travel for another 2 months, we will reach Lushan City. We are moving much faster than expected. We should arrive more than a year ahead of schedule, Blooddrop Marquis said, withdrawing his hand from the array plate. You have worked hard, Blooddrop Marquis. If not for you sparing no expense and consuming your blood essence, we could not have reached this place so quickly, Shi Chuankong said. 13th Prince, please do not say that. If you wish to thank me, wait until we safely enter the city and take the teleportation array to Chiyu City, Blooddrop Marquis said with a wave of his hand. But just as his words fell, a furious shout suddenly rang out from high above. If you want to go to Chiyu City, you must first ask whether this old man agrees. As the voice fell, transparent ripples spread through the void ahead. A towering invisible wall 10,000 zhang high suddenly appeared, and in the center of it, a figure emerged from the void. Not good. It is that old ghost Zhaogu, Blooddrop Marquis said slowly, his brows tightly furrowed. We were so careful, yet he still caught up to us, Shi Chuankong said, his gaze darkening. Han Li was startled inwardly, but his expression remained fairly calm. After all, he had already clashed with great encompassing cultivators several times. As long as the other party did not cultivate one of the 3 supreme laws, he still had some confidence that he could retreat safely by using certain methods and greatly exhausting his vital energy. The problem was that if he did so, he would not be able to take care of Shi Chuankong. Fortunately, they had already made some plans for this situation beforehand. Shi Chuankong had many methods, so it was not as though he had no chance of survival at all. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Han Li examined the newcomer. The man was tall and thin with a refined face. A patch on his forehead had no flesh, exposing white bone beneath. He wore a dark green Taoist robe and at first glance, had the bearing of an otherworldly immortal. You killed my disciple Huajing, and yet you still want to leave peacefully as though nothing happened? Reverend Zhaogu said slowly. Senior Zhaogu, it was your disciple who plotted against the 13th Prince first. Only afterward was he killed by the prince in return. This truly cannot be blamed on anyone else, Blooddrop Marquis said with a slight frown. He then cupped his fists toward the other party and spoke. I do not care about causes or consequences. Whoever killed my disciple must pay with their life. Reverend Xiaogu's beard and hair flared outward as he roared. His Taoist robe billowed completely, and waves of spatial ripples spread around him. We absolutely cannot fight him head-on. Split up and flee. Blooddrop Marquis's expression changed as he shouted. As soon as his voice fell, Shi Chuankong and Han Li were the first to fly out, rushing in two different directions. Blooddrop Marquis himself did not retreat. Instead, he advanced. Blood-colored runes appeared across every exposed part of his skin, and blood light erupted around his body. He raised a fist and smashed it straight toward Reverend Xiaogu. From his back, countless blood shadows burst forth, condensing into a strange and ferocious blood shadow giant demon 10,000 zhang tall. It also clenched a huge fist covered in crimson thorns and smashed down toward Reverend Xiaogu. Courting death, Reverend Xiaogu sneered. His figure shot upward as he also raised a fist and struck toward Blooddrop Marquis. Compared to Blooddrop Marquis's overwhelming momentum, there were not many strange phenomena on Reverend Xiaogu's side. Only white light flowed around his body, and the bones throughout his body crackled loudly. On the fist he threw, crystal-clear finger bones as white as jade all emerged outward. They had grown outside the flesh, forming a layer of bone armor around his hand. Strange golden patterns appeared across it. The two figures met high in the sky, and their fists collided with a thunderous boom. High above, it was as if a mass of blood-colored lightning had exploded. A violent and immense shockwave instantly erupted from beside the two of them and swept in every direction. Within hundreds of li, the void seemed to be struck by that force. It first contracted sharply, then expanded rapidly. On the ground below, an enormous circular pit appeared, and all mountains, rocks, forests, and trees within it collapsed and turned to dust. At the center of the explosion, blood light filled the sky. The massive blood shadow giant demon was the first to fail, exploding apart directly. Blooddrop Marquis's own arm also let out a series of strange sounds as the bones within it shattered inch by inch. Most of the arm became a mangled mess of flesh and blood, and his body was sent flying backward like a paper kite. Reverend Xiaogu, whose body was now covered by more than half a layer of bone armor, appeared completely unharmed. He immediately pursued, raised a hand blade, and thrust it directly into Blooddrop Marquis's left chest. He tore open a terrifying wound across the man's chest and stabbed through his back. What was somewhat astonishing was that although Blooddrop Marquis looked utterly wretched, not a single drop of blood flowed from the wound in his chest. Instead, the torn flesh wriggled like a living thing and began corroding Xiaogu's arm. A petty trick, and you dare act presumptuously? Reverend Xiaogu sneered. White light flashed on his arm, and countless white spikes suddenly grew from the surface of the bone armor covering it. Like a spiked club, they pierced Blooddrop Marquis's chest full of holes and tore it apart in an instant. Blooddrop Marquis's shattered body scattered in all directions. But in midair, red light flashed, and the pieces transformed into clumps of blood plasma. They merged together again, shot rapidly into the distance, and once more formed a human shape. When Reverend Xiaogu saw this, he also noticed out of the corner of his eye that Han Li and Shi Chuankong, the two main culprits who had killed his disciple, had already fled very far away. His gaze grew increasingly gloomy. He raised his clenched fist, then slowly opened his 5 fingers before him. A white ball of light immediately expanded from his palm, turning into a vast spiritual domain that spread in all directions. Within the spiritual domain floated a faint white mist. 7 or 8 white skull towers could be vaguely seen inside. Each tower was stacked from tens of thousands of white bone skulls. On the top of every tower burned a ghostly green flame, giving off a cold and sinister air. A creation stage spiritual domain, Blooddrop Marquis said slowly, his gaze narrowing. Within the withered bone spiritual domain, Blooddrop Marquis already felt extremely uncomfortable. He only felt the bones inside his body trembling violently, as if they were no longer under his control. Each bone seemed ready to burst out of his body and merge into those white bone skull towers. He circulated the immortal spiritual power in his body with all his might, releasing protective spiritual light to guard his physical body. At this moment, Reverend Xiaogu waved his hand before him. The skull towers immediately began moving rapidly, as though marching and arranging themselves into formation, surrounding Blooddrop Marquis at the very center. Once the skull towers settled into place, The ghostly green flames atop them suddenly surged and burned fiercely. In the eye sockets of every white bone skull on the towers, 2 ghostly green flames lit up. A mysterious and powerful aura then spread out from within them. Blooddrop Marquis, trapped within, immediately felt his entire body tighten. The skin across his body grew taut, and irregular bulges rose up everywhere, making him look extremely strange. Soft popping sounds rang out one after another. Small wounds began splitting open across Blooddrop Marquis's skin. Sections of sharp white bone actually pierced out from within, as though they were about to fly out of his body. Blooddrop Marquis was greatly alarmed. He quickly waved his hand, and a dark red spiritual domain expanded outward, wrapping him inside. The dark red spiritual domain covered no more than 100 zhang, but it was extraordinarily condensed. Dense blood energy coiled around his body, soon repairing the ruptured areas of his skin. The bones that had been stirring restlessly were also suppressed back into place. Seeing this, Reverend Xiaogu snorted coldly. His gaze swept the surroundings again, but Han Li and Shi Chuankong were no longer visible. He suddenly reached out with both hands and wiped them beneath his left and right ribs. 2 snow-white ribs, smooth and lustrous like jade, detached from his skeleton, pierced through his skin and came out. He casually tossed them toward 2 different directions. The 2 slightly curved white bones shot out at terrifying speed. In a flash, they had already flown more than 100,000 li, and soon caught up with the fleeing Han Li and Shi Chuankong. Han Li looked back, and his expression immediately changed. 100 li behind him, white light flashed, and that rib bone suddenly transformed into a human shape, becoming one of Reverend Xiaogu's avatars. "Little pest, where do you think you are going?" Reverend Xiaogu's avatar shouted furiously. White light burst from his body, and his figure shot forward. Almost instantly, he caught up with Han Li, who had been rushing ahead at full speed. Han Li was shocked. Golden light flared brightly around him, and his speed suddenly increased. However, for some reason, his speed had only surged for a moment before it seemed to lose momentum and slow down again. Reverend Xiaogu sneered. With a sweep of both sleeves, he chased up rapidly, opened his 5 fingers and clawed forward. As his hand reached out, 5 nearly invisible spatial depressions appeared in the void before him. They directly seized Han Li's body, preventing him from escaping. Han Li's figure froze in midair. Under the pressure of the surrounding void, his body began to deform, and pain appeared on his face. Reverend Xiaogu let out a wild laugh. He opened the fingers of his other hand and slapped downward. Above Han Li, a white light-wreathed bone claw emerged and slammed fiercely toward his head. Terror appeared on Han Li's face. He suddenly clenched both fists, and they transformed into 2 hazy green hurricanes that smashed upward toward the bone claw. When the 2 forces collided, there was no earth-shaking boom. Instead, there was only a soft puff. Under a squeeze from the bone claw, the 2 green hurricanes collapsed and vanished on the spot. Then the white light on the surface of the bone claw swelled. Carrying immense force, it pressed straight downward. A tremendous power that seemed capable of tearing through space crushed toward the top of Han Li's head. Han Li's body still could not move in the slightest. Then the surrounding void suddenly shook. The protective spiritual light around him collapsed, and his body burst apart with a bang. Reverend Xiaogu was first delighted, but his face soon stiffened. A strange scene appeared before his eyes. Han Li's shattered body abruptly shrank, turning into a cracked red bean. A drop of pale golden blood essence evaporated from it, becoming a wisp of white smoke that rose into the air. A rabbit head mask from the Impermanence Alliance also slowly fell out, drifting lightly downward. Almost at the same moment, in another direction hundreds of thousands of li away, Shi Chuankong's body was also smashed apart by a white bone claw descending from the sky. The scene was exactly the same. After Reverend Xiaogu recalled his avatars, his expression became extremely gloomy. His gaze turned toward Blooddrop Marquis, who was surrounded by the skull towers. At this moment, Blooddrop Marquis was within his own dark red spiritual domain. He did not try to flee, and his expression appeared quite calm. To create fake avatars of this degree, even deceiving this old man, can be considered some skill on your part. This old man is in a very bad mood now. If you want to live, tell me where their true bodies went. Xieji City, Yuliang City, or Guyong City? Reverend Xiaogu slowly exhaled, suppressing the anger in his heart as he spoke. The cities he mentioned were all other cities roughly as distant from Lushan City, and capable of teleporting to Chiyu City. Since Hanli and Shi Chuankong's false bodies had come here, their true bodies had most likely gone to one of those 3 cities. Senior, please do not joke. I spent so much effort creating blood essence false bodies with a secret technique, even using myself as bait to lure you here. Why would I tell you their true destination? A faint smile appeared at the corner of Blooddrop Marquis's mouth as he spoke. Since you are tired of living, then let your soul tell this old man. Reverend Xiaogu roared. With a forceful sweep of both hands, his withered bone spiritual domain immediately shrank rapidly and pressed toward Blooddrop Marquis's domain. Flames atop the 7 or 8 white-boned skull towers suddenly leapt upward. The green flames in every skull's eyes blazed brightly, and all the skulls flew up like a swarm of locusts, roaring as they charged toward Blooddrop Marquis. Yet at that moment a strange scene appeared. Blooddrop Marquis, who had been trapped within the spiritual domain all along, smiled even more deeply. With a flip of his palm, a jade talisman appeared in his hand, and he crushed it with a snap. After the jade talisman broke, a powerful spatial force immediately surged out from within it, condensing behind him into a deep black light gate. He took one step backward, and his figure sank into it, disappearing from sight. Reverend Xiaogu's pupils contracted, and veins bulged on his forehead. Even he had no time to stop it. He could only punch into the void, producing thunderous bursts of spatial explosions. Only after a long while did the sounds in the sky gradually fade, and Reverend Xiaogu's expression slowly returned to calm. He looked toward the distant Lushan city and muttered to himself, "Since I do not know which city you went to, I will wait for you in Chiyu City. Do not even dream of leaving the southern border alive." Almost at the same time, outside Xiongju City at the southernmost end of the southern border domain, 2 figures were slowly descending from high in the sky. Both of them were short and ordinary in appearance. They also looked very similar, like twin brothers. Their cultivation was only at the late true Immortal Realm, making them appear perfectly unremarkable within 10,000 li of Xiongju City. However, these 2 were none other than Han Li and Shi Chuankong, who had returned after seemingly leaving. Back then, Blooddrop Marquis had proposed taking 2 false bodies disguised as blood-refined Dao soldiers as bait and rushing toward Lushan City, while Han Li and Shi Chuankong would make their own way to Xieji City and take the teleportation array to Chiyu City. Han Li, however, believed this plan carried a certain risk. The other cities, including Xieji City, were all not far from Lushan City. Once Blooddrop Marquis and the false bodies were caught by Reverend Xiaogu and exposed, Xiaogu would still have enough strength left to pursue the 2 of them to those other cities. That was why Han Li decided to take the risk of returning to Xiongju City instead. According to the distance between Xiongju City and Runshan City, they should have arrived much earlier. However, in order to hide themselves, both of them had strictly suppressed their cultivation levels and did not even dare fly through space at full speed. That was why they had only arrived now. Brother Shi, it seems that third brother of yours truly treats you differently. This Blooddrop Marquis he sent to escort you is also utterly loyal. He was willing to risk dealing with a great encompassing cultivator to win you a chance of survival, Han Li said as they walked. Blooddrop Marquis is not the strongest cultivator under my third brother, but he has always been the most loyal. In the past I often heard third brother mention him, though I had never met him. If we can meet again in Yeong City someday, I will certainly repay him generously, Shi Chuankong said with a nod. As they spoke, the 2 had already passed inspection with their travel permits and entered Xiongju City. After renting a carriage at the beast stable, the 2 rushed without delay toward the city lord's manor. I am not familiar with Marquis Tianyua's temperament. From your description and Blooddrop Marquis, he also seems to be an ambitious and formidable figure. The minds of people like that are the hardest to predict, so returning to Xiongju City this time is truly a gamble, Han Li transmitted. In the killing trap at Yunshenro last time, he chose to stand aside and do nothing. I only hope that this time he will also turn a blind eye. As long as we can leave this place safely, I, Shi Chuankong, will owe him this favor, Shi Chuankong replied with a slight frown. After that, neither of them spoke again. The steady clatter of beast hooves echoed beside their ears as each carried his own thoughts. The city lord's manor occupied an extremely vast area. The grand buildings in the front half served as the official residence of the city lord, while the vast gardens in the rear half served as Marquis Tianua's private estate. At the border between the official residence and the garden stood a round tower-like building, 6 or 7 stories tall. It was covered in exquisitely carved decorations. That was Xiongju City's teleportation hall. Xiongju City was different from other places. Using the teleportation array here required strict inspection. When Hanli and Shi Chuankong arrived outside a side gate of the city lord's manor, they were immediately stopped by the guarding cultivators. "These are our travel permits. Please inspect them," Shi Chuankong said with an ingratiating smile, handing over 2 brand new permits. The identities of the 2 had now changed. They had become branch family disciples of the largest clan in the central region of the Demon Realm's Qinqiu domain. One was named Yu Zhongyan and the other Yu Zhongmiao. "Since you are disciples of the Qinqiu Yu clan, do you have clan emblems as proof?" After checking the travel permits, the older cultivator leading the guard softened his expression slightly and looked at the 2 as he asked. Shi Chuankong had already prepared for this. With a flip of his palm, he took out 2 palm-sized round iron tokens. Carved on each was a fierce strange beast with thorn-like twin horns on its head and 2 feathered wings suspended behind it. Below the image was engraved the Yu clan mark. The older cultivator took the round tokens and examined them carefully for a moment before saying, "The Yuya beast pattern is correct, and the twin wings on the back are indeed the symbol of a branch family. You 2 may enter." "Many thanks, senior." Shi Chuankong quickly thanked him, took back the permits and clan emblems, and entered the side gate with Han Li. As the 2 passed through the gate tunnel, the detection array above flashed faintly. The red warning light on it suddenly flickered and was about to light up, but Shi Chuankong took out a small round bronze mirror from his chest and secretly shone it upward. The light on the array flashed faintly, then vanished. One of the gate guard's eyes flickered slightly. He looked carefully up at the array, but seeing everything normal, he shook his head and looked away, assuming that his eyes had simply deceived him. Han Li and Shi Chuankong secretly breathed a sigh of relief and began walking inward along the corridors of the manor. The city lord's manor was heavily guarded. Almost every short distance had cultivators stationed there, and patrol teams moved along the way as well. The 2 spoke very little on the road and simply lowered their heads as they hurried onward. Before long, they arrived beneath the 7-story tower. At the tower entrance, a long line of people was waiting to enter. Han Li and Shi Chuankong stepped forward and joined the very end of the line. As time slowly passed, the people at the front entered the tower one after another. Soon it was their turn. The 2 entered the tower and immediately saw a teleportation array ahead, formed by 18 coiling dragon pillars. 3 demon men were standing inside it, waiting for the array to activate. Outside the array, apart from a middle-aged cultivator holding an array plate and operating the formation, only 3 other groups remained. "Where are you 2 teleporting to?" Just inside the tower gate on the right side, there was a redwood desk. Behind it sat a long-bearded old man in a black robe. He looked Han Li and Shi Chuankong over and asked, "Reporting to senior, we wish to go to Qiyu City." Shi Chuankong hurriedly bowed and said, "You 2 are lucky. There are still 3 spots left for Qiyu City today. You only need to wait for one more person to join you, and then you can teleport there," the black-robed old man said. His face was covered with fine scales, his voice was soft and feminine, and his gaze was deep and shadowy. "May I ask how long we need to wait?" Han Li asked with a slight frown. "Who can say? It depends on your luck. Perhaps someone will come with you immediately. Perhaps even if you wait until tomorrow, you still may not gather enough people," the black-robed old man said without raising his head.